I was just going to do whatever I needed to do to help us win. And I could say that was probably the greatest moment in a Xavier uniform for me, to be able to be on the first team to ever win an NCAA tournament game was definitely the highlight of my career at Xavier, no doubt about it.
All right, everybody, welcome into the Xavier Basketball 100 Years podcast, brought to you by Heartland Bank. I, Brad Redford, will be your host as we relive some of the greatest Xavier hoops moments of the last 100 years. New interviews will be made public each week, and enjoy this conversation with the all-time leading scorer in Xavier history, the one and only Byron Larkin.
Well, so one thing I found out is how boring and empty my life is without sports. That's the one thing that COVID has definitely revealed to me.
Well, I was wondering, do you go back and watch your old highlights and say, hey, I scored 45 points in this game. I could have scored 55 if I just would have done this.
Or if I had a three-point line my first 2 years. But, yeah, I do true. Sometimes. I do sometimes do that.
If you had a three-point line in your first 2 years, you would be well over 3,000, I think.
I would hope. I would think so. But, Brad, I was looking at an old NBA game. I think it was when Michael Jordan was a freshman against Georgetown, and they were replaying this on ESPN, and I was looking at how the guys play and how what was considered a good shot back then. And, they had the ball 19, 20 feet from the bucket. They weren't even looking at the basket in this game, where, in today's game, they'd be launching threes left and right. Those were three-point shooting now or were considered bad shots back in the day. So I think it would have took some time for everybody to kind of get used to it. I know when, my sophomore year, my junior year, when they first brought it out, it took me some time to kind of get used to, okay, now that bad shot is not a bad shot anymore. It's a good shot, So, but it was just amazing to see that the shot selection and how the 3-point line has just definitely changed, changed the perception and changed basketball. Speaking of 3-point shooting, everybody knows how great a 3-point shooter you were. But I was telling the story the other day about Chris Mack when he went to Frankenmuth, Michigan to recruit you. And he said that he was in the gym and he said he saw you shoot, make 92 or 93 out of 100 threes timed. And then he says, I don't believe it. Do it again. And then the second time around, you made 94. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh my God!
My OCD would kick in when I was shooting the basketball. It was like a complete focus on my end, and in some ways it was great that I had that focus, and then other ways I'm like, man, I wish I would have tried to do a little bit more at times. But focusing on shooting the basketball, I felt like that was always a key for me, and I'm sure that Sean Miller and Chris Mack and the other coaches that recruited me while I was in high school loved making those trips to Frankenmuth. I doubt they've made that trip. I honestly, looking back now, and I haven't talked to them in a while, but I wonder what they thought when they're driving up from Cincinnati or flying, depending how they got there. But either way, you're getting off the highway for 20 minutes. It's all farmland. And then you roll up to Frankenmuth, and there's a 20-foot Santa Claus statue just, waiting for you. So I'm sure they haven't spent much time in Frankenmuth after recruiting me.
Well, we haven't had another one since, at least in Xavier's program. So, but I know they love recruiting Michigan, because Michigan always has great players, man.
Come on over to Heartland.
Now, to run a successful business, you need to develop a strong relationship with your accountant, your attorney, and most importantly, your community banker. If you find it hard to get advice from your bank, maybe it's time to consider Heartland. I'm Scott McComb, CEO. Come on over to Heartland, where banking really feels good.
Where banking feels good. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
I'm looking at your bio, and obviously everybody knows that you're the best scorer in Xavier history, and your numbers are eye-popping. I mean, freshman year, 17 a game. Sophomore year, just under 22. Junior year, just under 25. Senior year, over 25. I've always been amazed, even when talking to you, you just get this understanding of your mindset, your competitiveness, your ability to score, but not go too quick. I mean, I feel like you kind of allow life, you allow the game to happen to you. I kind of want to understand your mindset coming in as a freshman, because you didn't start the first, I believe, 7 games. But it seemed like anytime you got the opportunity, you were ready to roll, and you were a leader at a young age.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing. You described it to a T, man. You did your homework. I guess my approach, I guess my freshman year, I was just I did whatever I needed to do to get onto the floor, and I know that, I scored a lot of points in high school, not at your clip, but that was my thing. And when I got to Xavier, I was like, hey man, they're actually going to make me play defense. Even though I did have to play defense at Moeller.
It scared me too a lot, actually.
Man,
I still have nightmares about being on an island with 2 Holloway. Still have nightmares.
Yes, that would do it. But my freshman year, Brad, I was just trying to do whatever. I was just trying to give the coaches what they needed. What they said, hey, in order for you to get onto the floor, you got to play defense. You got to know the defensive system. And even though I scored a lot in high school, Moeller really prepared me from academically, 1, for school, and then 2, to play defense. And I was, I understood the concepts, and, I was willing to do it. And then I had the awareness of, hey, I've got to, show these coaches that they can trust me on the defensive end, and then kind of let the offense take care of itself, because, I've always been a scorer. It just became, it was always natural to me to be hungry for shots and to find a way to effectively score. And then, just like in I guess in high school, once I got a little bit of the taste of it, I got more confidence, and I just kind of went from a naive freshman to a guy who felt that he belonged, and I expected to be successful. It was definitely a mindset that I had to have. Because I remember the first time I played pickup ball, we didn't have AAU back then. We had basketball camps. And one of the first times I played against kind of the Xavier players when I was in high school, I was just like, man, I don't know if I could play at this level, because everybody was so good.
Mm-hmm.
But then the coaches kind of said, hey, Byron, just, you'll improve, you'll adjust. And then I just trusted myself. I always was a hard worker, and I trusted the coaches, and I just was able to just kind of, just have an opportunity to play early. And then I made the most of my time. After the 7th game of my freshman year, I was a starter, and I was like, hey, I'm not going to give this back.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4 boys in my family, and I'm always used to competing. And it was a competition thing for me. Like, hey, now I'm here. I'm not going backwards. But more than anything, Brad, I just wanted to be consistent. When I played, and I wanted to improve every year. I was like, okay, I've got to get better. I want my numbers to be better. I want to score more points. I want to be more efficient. And that was just kind of my mindset every year that I played basketball. And it kind of, it ended the way it did, and it was a great experience.
Well, talk a little bit about that decision to go to Xavier, because at the time you were playing at Moeller, you had a lot of opportunities to go to other schools, and Xavier wasn't quite the winning program as it's seen across the country of present day and playing in the Big East. What was it for you? It was like, I'm going to go to Xavier, I'm going to set the tone, and I'm going to, make this a true winning culture.
Well, at the time, I was getting recruited by a lot of Big Ten schools. I had a brother that was at Michigan, and a brother that was Barry, and my brother was playing football at Notre Dame as well, and I was getting recruited by all these bigger schools, and I just made the decision that I was going to the school that wanted me the worst. I didn't want to get caught up in, all right, this is the big school that's recruiting me, so I'm automatically going to go there. My dad just gave me some advice, said, hey, you have to go where you want to go, not where I want you to go, not where your mother wants you to go, not where your friends want you to go, where you want to go, because you have to endure it for 4 years, So I took that. I thought that was some good advice. And, I saw my 2 older brothers, get recruited at the highest level. And, And so I kind of learned from them because Michael was a senior, then Barry was a junior, and I was a freshman. And I watched all those guys get recruited. So when I came along, I was, I had my mindset that, like, hey, this is going to be kind of how I'm going to approach it. And Xavier just came after me, Brad, harder than anybody did.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I went there. I figured that, I wanted to be their first option wherever I went to school. And I figured if I needed a little bit more time to develop, or if I screwed up, they might hang with me as opposed to just like recruiting over my head. And that was, the best decision I've ever made in my life.
So did you ever question being so close to home and playing at the collegiate level? Did you ever think that could cause, more distraction for you? Or were you kind of really focused on, what you were going to take care of day in and day out?
Yeah, that was never a concern at all for me, Brad. I mean, I was 100% focused on what I needed to do, whether it was in Cincinnati or in Hawaii or North Dakota. It didn't matter to me. I knew, what I wanted to do, and I was just really, really focused. And it just happened to be in our hometown. If Xavier was located somewhere else, I'd have gone, there. So, the location to where I grew up had really nothing to do with it.
And so I was doing my research. I do the whole YouTube deal, and I run around as much as I can. So there was a story that I saw you were talking about when Bob Stack first went to visit you at home. And it sounded like the visit went okay for you, but your mother was not that excited about Coach Stack and the idea of you going to Xavier. So I'm curious how you went from that meeting to actually making it on campus. I mean, did he come in with a cigar in hand? Was he?
Man! If you ever met Bob, man, Bob was he's super confident, cocky. He rubs you the wrong way, and my parents came into the house, and after the visit, and the door closed, my parents always tell me like, "Hey, we're not going to tell you where to go." But as soon as that door closed, my mom said, "Hey, I'm not going to tell you where to go, but I know where you are not going, Xavier University, because I do not like that man."
Oh, that is hysterical.
Right before that, just to show you how crazy my mom was, Villanova had came in to recruit me, and Raleigh Massimino was the coach, and man, he was straight out of The Sopranos. Man, he walks in. Him and the assistant coach, I think Steve Lapis was the assistant coach, and they come in and they're talking, and they got every assistant coach's last name ends in a vowel. It's like slick hair back, nice suits, Philadelphia. My mom looked at him, and I knew it was coming. She's like, "You're Massimino, Philadelphia. You guys aren't related to the mafia, are you?" My dad was like, "Surely." I was like, "Well, okay, I don't have to worry about going to Villanova, that's for sure."
Yeah,
so
that was off the market.
yeah.
Oh,
So that was my mom's first impression of Bob Stack, but she was really, really happy that I ended up going to Xavier because it was, she got to see me play, and she ended up being okay with Bob Stack, even though he left after my freshman year.
Yeah, and then you transitioned over to the fast-talking Pete Gillen, who's got more one-liners than my grandpa, which I didn't think was possible. My grandfather's got more one-liners, and I thought anybody until I've connected with Pete Gillen. What was that transition like for you from Coach Stack to Coach Gillen?
Well, that was it was interesting because there were rumors my freshman year that Bob Stack was going to leave. And then, we had got some information that he was going to stay. And then the next day he was gone. So I'm like, okay, now what? And it was over the summertime. And the coach who recruited me really hard was Bob Stack's assistant, Wayne Morgan, who was at Syracuse at the time. So when the coaching change happened, I was working a basketball camp at Syracuse. And it ended up being like a little recruiting time because I was talking to Jim Boeheim and Wayne Morgan, who was the assistant coach there, again, who recruited me at Xavier. We were, I was talking to them considering actually transferring to Syracuse. Well, Pete Gillen had found out about that. And by the time I came home, he had already been out to my house, had my mom's cooking. He had called me as soon as I got home. Said, "Hey, I already been out to your mom's house, had the cooking. Hey, we want you to stay, Byron. I want you to, we still want to build this program. We have major plans for you in the program. So please, stay." So he was on it, boy. Pete was on it, and he made me feel welcome right from day one, which I was worried about because, you have a head coach, he might have a different, opinion or plans for you, for the program. But Pete was great for me.
If I was a head coach coming into a new program and I had a true freshman the year before that averaged 17 a game, I would have brought my own crock pot meal to your house. And I would have had it sitting there. I would have been waiting in your front lawn for you to get home.
Definitely. He was on it, man. He was prepared, boy. He was. He did his homework up front.
Well, it worked out pretty good, and then you guys together and the squad got the first ever NCAA tournament victory, which had to have been just an incredible moment. You talk about the decision of staying home, close to home, going to Xavier, thinking about transferring, different head coach, leading the team. I believe you had 29 points in that game in 1988. Yeah. Maybe talk about kind of the culmination of that season and just for you, getting Xavier over the hump to the NCAA tournament, not just getting there, but winning a game.
Yeah, that was huge for us because I think that was my junior year. The previous year we had gone to the NCAA tournament. We didn't make it my freshman year, but my sophomore year we got in, and Alabama whooped us in the first round, and then, all the seniors leave, and now, I'm one of the leaders as a junior, and I just didn't want us to lose. And I guess when we went to the NCAA tournament that year, I think we were a 14 seed, and we had, it was just a mindset. We expected we weren't just happy to be there. We wanted to win, and I just wasn't. I was going to do whatever I needed to do to help us win. And I could say that was probably the greatest moment in a Xavier uniform for me, to be able to be on the first team to ever win an NCAA tournament game was definitely the highlight of my career at Xavier. No doubt about it. It was, I had a big game, and it was fun. I remember afterwards being so excited I didn't know how to feel because we had never won before. They had been to the NCAA tournament. We had never won. I'm like, okay, what do we do now? What's the schedule? And I'm like, well, you stick around and you play again. I'm like, okay, So
it's almost like you want to play immediately, though. 'Cause waiting 2 days, it's hard to get sleep. I mean, once you win that first game, there's so much excitement. It's hard to turn the page quickly and move on to another team because you want to win and continue to advance.
It is. It is, and it was. It was Brad. It was the best feeling in the world afterwards because we had, before the game, we had some words with Missouri because we got onto the court before they did, and we were shooting all the basketball. They had a basketball rack out there, and we had all the balls, of course, because no one else was out there. They came out as opposed to just like calling for the ball, like, hey, we'll get a couple balls. They had attitudes. They were talking crap before the game, like, hey, give us the ball. I'm like, you want the ball? Here. I had kicked it in the stands. Go get it.
Yeah.
So it was on from the tip. So we, So that was that set the tone early. We wanted to put them in the book, and we did, and it was the best feeling ever.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Were you a trash talker on the court? Did you?
No.
You just talked your game. I wasn't.
That's right. Not at all. I purposely, Brad. I just was expressionless because I thought that I didn't want to jinx myself, one, by talking, and two, like, well, first of all, at Moeller, there weren't no talking. If you talked, man, you sat on the bench, man. It was about discipline and, let your play do your talking. And, my folks were like that, I mean, when we played sports, my parents just had 3 rules. Like, if you play, you're going to show up on time, you're not going to quit, and you're going to behave. The rest is up to you. That was our, that was the rules in my household. And that's how I kind of grew up. And I just never wanted to be that guy who just talked crap and then something bad happened. I just wanted to talk. I just wanted my play to do my talking. So
well,
that was my deal.
The level of competition at your home compared to most people in the universe is a lot different. So you guys,
Yeah.
you guys were drinking some different water than the rest of us, apparently.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That's just the way it was, Brad, man. It's like you want to beat your brothers more than anybody. And it just helped me, just when it was time to compete. And trying to, put the hammer down, I was used to it, even though I lost almost all the time.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a teammate at Xavier that comes to mind, a guy that gave you a lot of confidence or you really connected with during your time?
Well, my first 2 years, it was Ralph Lee. Ralph was our point guard, and he was a consummate leader, like on and off the floor. I mean, he was the connector. He made sure everybody was happy, and on the floor, off the floor, he held us accountable. If someone was screwing up in the dorms, Ralph would come and get you and snatch you up. Or if it was time to play pickup ball and you didn't feel like playing, he kicked the door down. Get up, let's go, we got to play. So Ralph was very inspirational relative to that. And then I tried to be a little bit like him when he left, when the team was mine after he had left and I was a junior and I was the leader. So I just, he wasn't a trash talker either. He just led quietly, with his tone, always the hardest worker on the floor. And, and one of the best performers. That's what I tried to be.
Well, I feel like Xavier has, for the most part, always had that guy, that leader, not necessarily always, the best player in your case, but always have that guy that, you say that Xavier way is a little cliche, but I feel like, especially in the teams, prior to where Xavier is now, really relished in that kind of underdog, us against the world type role. Did you feel that during your time at Xavier?
No, not really, Brad. I just felt like it sounds cliche, but I just did it I just played one game at a time. I really, I was so focused on doing what I needed to do, to make sure my grades were up and try to behave and try to be the best basketball player I could be. I didn't have a sense of, where we were relative to, perceptions of our program or relative to any other program. It was just, I just did what I needed to do for the next opponent, and so, it was not the era of social media, so there was not as much of all the other stuff going around. Oh, if it was, I was just naive to it because I know, I needed to keep my grades up and I needed to be the best basketball player that I could be. Now, don't get me wrong, we still had our fun and we messed around and all that kind of stuff, but relative to a perception of our program, it was just, hey, we're listening to the coaches, doing what we need to do and just going on game by game.
Yeah, the era of social media is affecting everybody. Do you think anything would have changed on your end in terms of what you paid attention to if you had Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, that constant social media in front of you to promote?
I'm sure it would have. And I don't think in a positive way either, just because, well, it works both ways. It cuts both ways. When you do well, you everyone knows about it and they're going to sing your praises. But if you have, the opposite's true too. That's just the way it is. If you're struggling, everybody's going to talk about it and you're going to be, it's going to expose you. And, I don't know if that's, that makes for a better player or not, but it definitely, I think, would have changed. But I'm glad it happened the way it did, because at least I could control kind of most of the messages that I was getting in my head. And that was usually positive from, my players, my coaches, and some of the friends that I did have, So, but you know how it is, bad news travels twice as fast as good news. So, and, I had some struggles, but, I was able to get through it because, I just kind of stayed focused. And I think that's a little harder to do right now, given social media and kids looking at their phone 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm. And Byron, I had no idea you were the football player that you were too. I did not. You were an All-American football player at Moeller, and then after Xavier, you actually had a tryout with the Bengals. And from what I read, you had like it was like the ending tryout with the Bengals was the same day as a tryout you had with the New Jersey Nets. Maybe talk about that process when you moved on from Xavier and trying to figure out professionally, what sport am I going to play and where am I going to end up?
Yeah, well, when I got out of Xavier, I think I played overseas. I'd gotten back. I think I played 1 or 2 years overseas, and I get a call from Dick LeBeau was the defensive backs coordinator, the defensive back coach for the Bengals at the time, and Coach Lippincott was my defensive back coach at Moeller, and I was really recruited heavier for football than I was for basketball, and but I liked football, but I loved basketball. Mm-hmm. So, after I got out, I had a trial with the New Jersey Nets, but then the phone rang and it was the Bengals saying, "Hey, Byron, you want to be a Bengal?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know." Mm-hmm. They're like, "Well, come down here, run the 40-yard dash." So I went down. I ran the 40-yard dash. Dick LeBeau put me through all these agility drills, like drop stepping, catching the ball. I could always run and catch. They were like, "Okay," after the physical, they said, "Go home. We'll call you and talk with the coaches to see if we're going to make you an offer." So then the next day they called me, said, "Byron, we'll make you an offer to come to camp." But it was on the same day as the trial with the Nets. So I elected to do the basketball thing. It was flattering to have the invitation from the Bengals, but Brad, I was used to seeing tall guys. I wasn't used to seeing tall guys that were 330 pounds. So I'm like, you guys might do too much damage to me. So I'm going to stick with basketball. But it was flattering to go through that experience.
It's odd to me, reading your bio. I mean, I can't believe I didn't get any calls from the NFL when I got done at Xavier. I mean, I felt like I would have been perfect for the Green Bay Packers. Put me beside Aaron Rodgers. I mean, maybe they'll wise up. Maybe they'll wise up in my third decade here.
Maybe, Brad. So I know you had some injuries at Xavier, boy. You add football, bro. It's a whole nother level.
Oh, that would have. I mean, I don't know. I probably wouldn't have either of my legs right now if I.
I know, right? That's right. Me too.
So, have you had more fun with Xavier as a player or as an analyst? 'Cause you've done a great job, and you've partnered up with Joe Sunderman. I mean, how much fun has that been for you? And I mean, you've been with Xavier pretty much from the beginning, and I mean, seeing this program, grow, and you being a huge part of it early on in the 80s, early 90s as a player, and then just, where this program has gone, it just has to be amazing. I mean, you've been with it every step of the way.
Yeah, Brad, it's been so fun just to, it's hard. That's a hard question to answer because, as a player, I had so much fun and had so much success and doing things that no one else had ever done at Xavier was always going to have a special place in my heart. But then after I got out and, now broadcasting, I just finished my 22nd year broadcasting. It's so much fun to have the perspective that I do have from what it was when I played and when I traveled to watching, players like you in your era to what it is now. It's just so fun to see how far the program has come. And, being able to, I'm on the team again, working with Joe Sunderman, who's probably the best person I've ever met in my life. It's just so much fun. And maybe it's a little bit more fun broadcasting because I still have the pressure to perform because I put a tremendous amount of pressure on myself when I play because I wanted to be consistent. I wanted to be a guy that, just when the coaches at the end of the day, they're like, "All right, Byron, we're going to get 20 points out of you no matter what." That's what I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So I had put a lot of pressure on myself as a player. I put pressure on myself as a broadcaster, but, the difference is now after the game, I don't have to worry about studying or the next practice. After the game, I got to worry about where I'm going to go eat.
Yeah.
So it's different.
What am I going to eat? What am I going to drink?
That's right. So that's the difference. But it's been so much fun, when they asked me to come back and broadcast, because again, I'm part of a team for the school that I bleed for, and it's the best job ever. It is.
And it gives you a unique connection to every player, every era, every coach. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And I always enjoyed when I was on the road with you. And, you were always – I felt like – I don't know if you did this on purpose, but you're always tactical, I felt like, with your moments maybe to talk to a player. And there's always, at least for me, I think most of the guys, there was always such a level of respect for you and your name's in the rafters, and everyone that plays at Xavier knows your story. But I think all the players appreciate it. Are there any guys in particular where you've really been able to develop a relationship with, or just really enjoyed watching play during their time at X?
Well, I enjoy so many players play. I mean, that list is endless. But Brad, I've always wanted to be one of those guys who, I wanted to have a presence, but I didn't want to be one of those guys that are grabbing you. Hey, Brad, come here. Let me tell you how I used to do it. I didn't want to be that. I just wanted to show respect to the players, because I know how hard and how much effort they take to be student athletes. I appreciate that. And I just, I wanted to be there kind of like a advisor or brother or whatever. I'm there if they, as a resource if they need me. Because I know the players have so many people in their ears right now. I didn't want to be another voice in their ear, so I want to maintain like a little bit of distance relative to that. But at the same time, I wanted them to know, and the players to know, that, hey, I've been through it. And if you need me to use me as a resource, I'd love to, share anything that I could. But it's kind of I'm in a kind of a unique position there. I just always tried to be encouraging the players and just say, hey, man, listen to the coaches. They know your game, better than anybody. And just to be encouraging to those guys and not make a stressful, hard situation any more stressful and harder on those guys. That's always been my approach, and being able to enjoy those guys from afar and to know that, I'm with them as much as, I'm as invested in them as they are in the program relative to wanting them to win and, feeling disappointment when they don't. It's just, it's a unique perspective for me, and it's one that, I've loved doing for 22 years, and hopefully I can continue to do it for another 22 years.
Yeah, I'm hoping you get a chance this year. I think everybody is, and I talked with Dante Jackson earlier, and I think there's a lot of excitement about the new players that Xavier has brought in. I think the last couple years have maybe caused a little bit of disappointment within Xavier Nation, but I think a lot of people are feeling very positive about where this group is heading.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Dante and Travis and the staff, they've done a tremendous job. Just really excited about what they can be and what, the job they've done, given, the circumstances. This is, a new era. It's a different era, man. Like, being in the Big East is not like being in the A-10 or any other conference. The competition has never been greater. The profile of the program has never been bigger. But I love the way they've amassed some talent, and it is, I think the future's bright. I think Travis is the right man for the job. I love his assistants. I love how they've been able to amass a lot of talent, and I think these next 2 years are going to be big for Travis, and I think they're well positioned to do great things and continue the success of the program.
And I think we're so lucky as a alumni fan base to be playing in the Big East. I mean, the level of talent that we get to see at the Cintas Center, night in and night out during college basketball conference play is just, it's for hoops junkies. It's unbelievable. I mean, I've had so much fun keeping up with the program and watching Xavier not only, get into the new Big East, but, be a force to be reckoned with, win the Big East title, be a 1 seed, and taking that next step has been pretty awesome to see. Oh,
it has been. I mean, if you're a basketball fan, the Big East Conference is one of the best in the country, and it's just basketball, and that's the best place for Xavier. Xavier's put themselves in a position by investing in the program and the Cintas Center and getting good coaches to get good players to be in a position where the Big East, when they were ready to expand, that they wanted Xavier, and that's just a testament to Xavier's ability to allocate resources to where they've raised the profile, and now Xavier's in the Big East, and it's best positioned to do well, and real excited about their future.
Yeah. All right, Byron. Well, you are the man. I appreciate you jumping on. There should be no software glitches. All right, I was running like 5 minutes late. We should be perfect. But,
okay.
Yeah, I hope this wasn't too challenging of an interview. I had a lot of fun catching up with you.
Yeah. Thank you, B. Appreciate it, brother.
See you, Byron.
Thank you, man. All right, bye.
All right, I just want to thank everybody for listening to this podcast. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a review and keep tuning in to more Xavier Basketball 100 Years podcast interviews.
Xavier wins it! The Muskies win it! 71-69! And the UC Bearcats are number 1 in the country, number 2 in their own city!